The federal government is set to make retirees pay more for home aged care as it looks to strike a better balance between how much taxpayers and the elderly are paying to fund the sector. Live to our political editor now, Andrew Clennell. Andrew, what's happening with these aged care reforms? I see you were able to get Anika on the program yesterday. Good for you.
Yes, well, she basically has done her press conference and then the interview with me on Sunday agenda. I think her focus in the next few weeks will be trying to hammer out a deal with the opposition, because she made it very clear, unless this is bipartisan, they're not doing anything. But one of the key areas she seemed to admit that they will be tackling is this issue of home care. At the moment, 95% of the cost of that sort of aged people home care is taken up by the taxpayer. Hardly any user pays in the system at all. And she confirmed yesterday, Anika, she will be tackling this. I also asked her about whether she would look to index the basic daily fee for a stay in a nursing home, which is another recommendation of her task force. Again, it will rely on opposition support, but you can imagine someone like Jim Chalmers in his budget being pretty keen on that particular reform as well. Here was the aged care minister yesterday.
There's only two places that additional funding for aged care can come from, either from the taxpayers or from the people using those services. So currently, like you say, it's 95% taxpayers' contribution, 5% the people who use the services contribution. We need to make sure that we get that balance right so that everybody does get a higher quality service and access to more services, access to services that you can't currently get under home care packages, so that people are set up at home for as long as possible.
That was a good interview, Andrew. Thank you for that. And it'll be interesting to see where the opposition land on that over, the next couple of months, and where the strategy is in it all is political and practical. But the opposition, meantime, saying they're hearing, quote, very concerning things about the Labor government's religious discrimination bill. What's going on there?
Well, it looks like this is going to land this week. Mark Dreyfus sent the Australian Law Reform Commission off to find out what Labor's reforms in this area should be. Don't forget, Laura, that Scott Morrison got in all sorts of trouble from trying to introduce religious discrimination changes, and several of his MPs crossed the floor. Now it seems Labor's giving itself the same headache. So it's quite interesting, after the Dunkley by-election, some political success, all these things that were in the, if not the too hard basket, the pretty hard basket, like aged care, like religious discrimination, the reports are coming out from the government and we're getting their responses. The school sector, particularly the Catholic school sector, are quite concerned that this will prevent how they treat students and staff, who they want as staff. They're saying they've got real concerns about the direction the Law Reform Commission is recommending and the government might go. Micaiah Cash is concerned about this, the Shadow Attorney General, but also about the prospect of people being prosecuted for racial vilification, which could become murky and complicated indeed, especially when you look around at the world at what's happening right now. She was on the show yesterday.
I am hearing very concerning things from stakeholders. The government has literally told the majority of stakeholders they are not being consulted. Those they are consulting, get this, Andrew, people of faith, they have been gagged from saying anything. I'm also hearing the government wants to rush through these changes without an inquiry. That is completely, totally and utterly unacceptable.
Andrew, some lessons for Labor for sure after losses in the Queensland by-elections at the weekend.
Yes, and I think this is obviously a concern for Stephen Miles. There were some in the LNP here in recent weeks who thought that Stephen Miles could get there. You'd have to say there's less of a chance today. When I covered New South Wales, I saw Gladys Berejiklian lose big by-elections and with big swings, however, and still win office in 2019. It often comes down to the campaign, and it is being seen as a bit of a close contest. But real concerns for Labor in Queensland. We know they've had a terrible time there for a while. And with Peter Dutton, a Queenslander, as opposition leader, and with the Greens on the surge in Brisbane, could they actually lose more seats, if that's possible, in Queensland Labor, which would hurt them in terms of retaining majority government? You'd have to say, after these results on the weekend, that is a possibility. Anika Wells has a marginal seat. It's Wayne Swan's former seat of Lilly. in Brisbane, and she was saying on the program she was concerned about some of the city council results in particular.
I'm keeping a close eye on some of the council by-elections that we had here in Brisbane last night, and there's 2 races for wards that sit within Lilly who currently are on a knife's edge, where we, Labor, are a genuine prospect of taking 2 wards off the Liberals. I'd also point you to, if you look at some of the results for the Greens in those council wards and that impact that might have both in October and next year sometime, there is clearly a lot for us to work on.
Laura, I have to say, I think this also means it's much more likely now the election, federal election that is, will definitely be next year, because if you see Queensland Labor getting a bad result, the only window Anthony Albanese could go early would be a month after that. Then it would sort of flow through, if you like, a bit like it did from federal Scott Morrison result to the New South Wales result. So you don't want that. You want a bit of distance if Queensland Labor don't have a good result. And therefore, you actually would hope, say 6 to 8 months after that people would take the view, well, we've got a state LNP government now, perhaps we should vote the other way when it comes to federally. You might pick up a few more votes that way, or certainly hang on to the furniture. So Queensland, even though the LNP dominates, they have something like 23 of the 30 seats federally, it's still shaping after this result as a pretty important state come the next federal election.
Oh, absolutely. Always is. Andrew, thanks so much. Enjoy the week.